War Room Pandemic, the home of hashtag pandemic. We want to make sure we get our hashtag War Room Pandemic. We want to make sure we get all your voices in the day. Tremendous commentary. One of our listeners already told me, he said, Steve, when you talk about the Attorney General going out to getting a team to go out to Minneapolis, make sure that they quoted some law that they also talk about the law of crossing interstate boundaries to riot. Okay, so we wouldn't expect anything less from the audience of hashtag War Room Pandemic. John Fredericks Radio Network. We're in Chicago, 99.1, 103.9 FM. Also, americasvoice.news. Now, Dish Channel 219. And we're on Newsmax TV in 70 million homes. Chris Reddy and the team all over the world on IRSLexus.org and 250 million homes throughout the world. Huge international viewership. As we know, we get some great, every day, tremendous feedback from the international audience. And later in the day, subtitle in Mandarin, G News, GTV, G Media, 3 different sites, inundated with literally tens of millions of viewers after they blow through the firewall. And the firewall is what's got to come down in Hong Kong, because they're going to put a firewall up very, very quickly. You watch Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam, Greg Manns on the trigger. We got great hour in front of us. We're going to have live from Hong Kong. We're going to actually have one of the leaders of the insurgency. He's going to tell you how tough it is there and what challenges he faces. Listen, fortune favors boldness. I want to thank our new sponsor, NetSuite by Oracle. It's the largest platform on the cloud business system. These are very uncertain times. Look at the first hour we just had here. You're talking about from bringing criminal charges against social media companies by Ted Cruz to what's happening with the mullahs in Iran, what's happening in Beijing, what's happening in Minneapolis, Louisville, Kentucky. The world's a very uncertain place. If you want to be successful in business, it's quite simple. You need tools. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're not going to have a lot of, corporate backup. You got to do it on your own, okay? The way you do it is get the best tools possible. NetSuite by Oracle. Fortune favors the bold. We're going to have Chris Fenton on here in a minute, but I want to go back and reset. We've got some news coming out on a story we've been all over with General Spalding. Boris Johnson shaking off because something happened. It's like in football when you get hit, your bell gets rung. Remember when you were a kid playing pee-wee football or high school football, your bell gets rung? It takes you a while to shake it off. Boris Johnson had that run-in with the virus, with COVID. He has not shaken off. Dominic Cummings, then the Dominic Cummings thing for the 5th day, right? He's not shaking it off, but he's stepping up big time, isn't he, Jack?
He's stepping up big. This morning, the Times is reporting of London that Boris Johnson is going to propose to the United States government, to President Trump, that they create a sort of G7, but it's going to be called the D10, the great democracies of the world. And they're going to add in Australia, South Korea, and India with the idea of uniting these democracies to oppose Huawei and to create, hopefully, a 5G network for the free world. I would make one proposal. I would also add Brazil. Make it a D11. We need those guys on the team.
If you call it D12, you get into Eminem's rap band territory, so you've got to keep it below 12. I do have a problem with this. Look, the idea is great. But the justification seems spurious to me from the British perspective. They say that Nokia and Ericsson are the only European suppliers of 5G infrastructure, and that they cannot provide 5G kit as quickly or cheaply as Huawei, and this is why the British government wants this D10 entity to try and find solutions to getting Britain's 5G infrastructure up and running sans Huawei before 2023. They had already arranged for Huawei to be a part of this between now and 2023 was the latest thing that they said, hey, we're going to get them out by this point in time. Now, the good news is it looks like they don't want them involved at all. But the bad news is just spend a bit more money. It's extraordinary to me that they think this is a game.
Look, I think they got to work out these details. Let's go back to Kevin Fruin. Let's connect some dots here. 6 months ago, nobody was talking about any of this stuff. Huawei was just going throughout the world. Remember, it's One Belt, One Road. Made in China 2025, and Made in China 2025 is the convergence of advanced chip design, artificial intelligence, and robotics to make China the ultimate fourth industrial revolution manufacturing superpower, ladies and gentlemen. You add that with Huawei, which was the backbone of quantum computing, they own the future. They have the high ground economically of the fourth industrial revolution in the 21st century. And they're going to sit there and make a decision. They're going to say, hey, you choose. You see Minneapolis, see there's places you choose from the messiness of democracy to what we do as a totalitarian mercantilist state. You know, you can live a very materially happy life as a drone, right, in this system, and we're going to have the high ground of all the high-value jobs, and all the democracies, industrial democracies, are literally going to be tributary states to us. We didn't talk. The people out there in the audience, Kevin Freeman said ignorant. I know he slightly misspoke. You haven't had the information, but now you have the information. It's opportunity cost. The $1 to $2 to $3 trillion we're talking about that these CCP companies have of American institutional capital, ladies and gentlemen, is what you don't have. When we talk about NetSuite by Oracle and getting tools in your hands as an entrepreneur, remember, one of the hardest things to do is get access to capital as an entrepreneur. Back your play. One of the reasons it's tough is $3 trillion of it's back in the enemy's companies. Many of these in high tech. Huawei had run the tables on the world before people started being. General Spalding was either fired or left the White House. Smartest guy we had. I'm very proud of one of the guys who recruited him. One of the smartest guys we had on the China team was blown out because of a report he made about nationalizing the 5G system because Huawei was running the tables and nobody was listening. AT&T, the convergence of, hey, guess what? Technology and media. AT&T and Time Warner, I fought this. I said these are too big, too powerful. And where were the voices on the left? Where's the pillow fight that is Bernie Sanders? It's a pillow fight. Hey, Bernie, note to self, it's a knife fight, okay? You want to get in, you got to get in close and put it in, okay? This is what this is about. And that convergence, and here you see today, the President of the United States is fighting these big tech companies. Ted Cruz talking about criminal charges. I just want to give the President a note. You're in love with this Dow Jones Industrial Average. It's loaded with these tech companies, these massive tech companies. You start going after them, you're going to have a hiccup. What's happened? Probably the market's up today. What's the market at right now? Somebody I can't see. I get the audience ought to know. I put the CNN on the back just to trigger you guys. I want you mad. When you listen to the show, I want you on your toes. We're not here to entertain you. We're here to help you get enlightened. You have to do it yourself. We're just here to provide information, context, and some concepts so you can wrestle with them. And here's what the amazing thing is. The best thing we've got going in the War Room is the hashtag War Room Pandemic at War Room 2020. Your feedback, your analysis, your calling us out all the time and questioning us, right, and adding new stuff has been fantastic. It makes the show so much better. So I want to reset before I bring Chris Fenton on. This is another voice we're going to start having on here. He's going to become one of our regulars. You've seen him on Tucker, but now he's going to have a real platform. Just kidding. Love him on Tucker. Love Tucker. Love the posse of Tuckers. No. And Fenton is a business guy from Hollywood. He's seen the CCP up close and personal. But let's reset on this social media war, where we actually stand. And somebody please tell me that they have scheduled the China briefing this afternoon. This is not, we got to get the China briefing on the schedule. The president's got to step up in the Rose Garden today and throw down on the Chinese. They're mocking poor Secretary Pompeo is doing a fabulous job, right? They're in our grill. They don't think the West. This is what I like about Boris Johnson. You talk about America first. America first. This is America first leadership because it shows, Trump didn't think what Boris Johnson did. The whole concept is to get these nation states to start stepping up on their own. The point of Make America Great Again is to help these other nations learn how to make themselves great again. We want Brazil to be great again. We want the United Kingdom to be great again. We want Italy to be great again. We want China to be great again. We're all for Lao Beijing. The whole old 100 names, we fight for old 100 names every day. You know why? Old 100 names is nothing but the Chinese deplorables. We want China to return to its greatness based upon a democratic society where they actually have ability to speak. Let's reset, and we're going to bring Chris Fenton in. We're going to, Vish, good, you guys on schedule. We're going to be running over everywhere today. What do we got, Raheem?
Well, the president has tweeted just about 15 minutes ago, again talking about the National Guard. He says the National Guard has arrived on the scene. They're in Minneapolis and fully prepared. George Floyd will not have died in vain. Respect his memory, which seemed to me like a knowing tone shift. Perhaps worried that Twitter are going to step on his tweets again.
Oh my God! You think that? He's
It
honey
might be-
badger. You
No
think?
way.
No
No
way.
way.
No way.
I don't know.
This is a game for him.
No, but I think. Well, But I think he.
I didn't say it was a bad
I
thing.
think he understands the seriousness of.
Sure.
And there was, I think, some misinterpretation of the one last night. We're glad that the listener at War Room Pandemic # War Room Pandemic cited that. We've got it up on the site now to do it.
Well, CNN's Chiron a moment ago was President Trump recommends shooting protesters or looters, rather. And we know that the Minnesota governor is due to hold a news conference very shortly. We also know that the CNN reporter has now been released and is back reporting.
Did the CNN?
on the scene.
We got to get that Chiron. They really say that President Trump advocates shooting.
It was behind your
It
head.
either said recommended or suggest. It was one of
Suggest.
those. So we go back and
Okay,
we'll
he didn't actually suggest this because the # War Room Pandemic posse points out it was right after the store owner did. Okay, I want to bring in now.
And just very
Yeah,
quickly
sure.
as well on all of the # War Room Pandemic stuff, I want to give a shout out to our YouTube audience because they're fantastic in the comment section as well. So if you're watching us on YouTube,
Look, Facebook, YouTube, Dish, America's Voice, the streaming platform, they'll be covering all the president stuff today. You've got 20 different ways you can get access to the show. People come in and say, hey, you ought to restrict the podcast, become 100 times bigger. No, we want to make sure that we're there to meet you where you are. This show is. We think this show is too important for you to get access to information. We already know from the feedback we get. And what I particularly like is the feedback say, "Hey, Bannon, quit hogging the mic. We want to hear Raheem." I would let Raheem would have him over. He has a toothache or something this morning, right?
That's right.
So we got.
well, after that fight we had last night, after that knife fight we had. By the way, you talked about knife fights. Somebody said the only person Bannon wants to get in a pillow fight with is AOC, and I was like, nah, it's got to be Pelosi, surely.
I like the audience is paying attention. I do like AOC, and I like Nancy Pelosi. Okay, you haters out there. Let's bring in Chris Fenton now. Chris, you've had personal experience. Today, the President of the United States is going to, we hope, schedule this press conference where he's going to throw down, according to Larry Kudlow, about confronting the Chinese as they've retraded Hong Kong, essentially said they don't care what the West has to say. You've dealt with the Chinese as a Hollywood producer. You've been in business with them in a Chinese company, with a major CCP influence. Talk to the American people here. What would you recommend the president do today to stand up to the Chinese Communist Party in Hong Kong?
Well, thanks for having me on. I actually wrote an editorial for the Federalist yesterday that tackled this issue a little bit, because one of the things that I feel is so vital is that we have to play the long game, just like the Chinese Communist Party does with their initiatives. And one of the issues that you just brought up was the Dow Jones Industrial Average and our fascination with that as a metric in regards to American health. I just completely disagree with that. The bifurcation from the markets and what's good for Americans seems to get wider and wider every day. So I would argue that we need to reset the way we actually process information and success and look at things that are more about the longer term health benefits for the country. You talk about the flow repatriation that happened a couple weeks ago. You talked about yesterday, why aren't there more massive pushes for repatriation? Why haven't companies gone and done that? But the simple answer is short-term earnings are going to get very, very dampened by that process. And we need to start thinking more long-term rather than quarterly P&E, in our quarterly statements that we're giving to investors.
Hey, Chris, just hang on for 1 second. We'll hold you over for the next segment. We're running a little late here. Okay, # War Room Pandemic. I want to hear your voice at War Room 2020, at War Room Pandemic. You can get access to the show, go into the live conversation on Facebook, live conversation on YouTube, all of it. We're going to turn with Chris Fenton in just a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the air-conditionless and muggy War Room for your listening pleasure. Chris Fenton joins us. He's author of the upcoming book, Feeding the Dragon. He's a film producer, American businessman that was in business with companies that were controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. He knows how enjoyable it is to work with him. Chris, we're under time pressure here, but I want to get to you on this. What is it like for an American entrepreneur? And we're listened to, as you know, by many, many entrepreneurs. What was it like for you to work with these companies that are actually controlled by political entities?
Well, what's amazing is that information-wise, they all have the same party line. They're very unified propaganda-wise in the way they try to push what their objectives are. So if you look at the CCP and what their biggest objective is, it's keeping 1.4 billion people just happy enough that they don't revolt. And part of that is giving them as much as they need and a little bit of what they want, and then also messaging to them that they need, right? So all the messaging that's done by the SOEs, the state-owned enterprises, or the various other entities that you're working with, all work in line with that type of narrative. You have to be doing something that they can pitch to the populace that's good for them and solidifies leadership.
Chris, I want to ask you, Jesse, I was on Jesse Waters a couple of weeks ago, and Jesse started off by going about how Hollywood is so dependent now upon the Chinese market for their films and Chinese capital, and you saw this, right? And that's a key part of information warfare. Remember, people would argue one of the ways we really defeated the Soviet Union was culturally. Levi's jeans, American movies, Rocky, all of that. Is Hollywood off the table right now as a part of the information warfare for freedom and democracy in the Judeo-Christian West? Is it really off as a chip because of the economics of the movie business today?
Well, I mean, the economics of the movie business are much like a lot of other industries. They're very dependent on China and the growth that China presents. Hollywood's a really interesting story because it can work two ways. One is it can work to help spread the soft power message across the Chinese borders if China puts too much pressure on Hollywood entities. But on the same token, if we get together as a nation and support all the companies in a correct way, in the way they approach that market, Hollywood can be a very effective, if you want to call it a weapon or just a tool for democracy, because we see soft power influence through aspirational stories into that market. As long as we're not influenced by a CCP agenda, that's the key. We have to protect studios so that they aren't beholden to those type of very strict regulations.
Well, they're using soft power. I mean, one of the things we're going to be talking about in the weeks ahead and get you back on here was it wolf diplomacy? I mean, they came out with a series of movies that show the Communist Party came out with these movies that show the Chinese as very aggressive in places like, I think, sub-Saharan Africa, helping the population against the evil foreign devils, right? I mean, they're using soft power. They've learned the lessons of America versus the Soviet Union. They understand that, as Andrew Breitbart said, culture is upriver from politics, and these guys get it, right? This is one of the reasons they decoupled from the West on the technology side. They're going to build their TikTok is going to be theirs, right? All these new technologies, Zoom is theirs, TikTok is theirs. I don't care the phony face they put on this. You know this from Alibaba. You had a little Jack Ma dancing around like Michael Jackson. He's just a front guy. Okay, the real guys really run it, and then they announce, oh, by the way, Jack Ma is a member of the Communist Party, been a member of the Communist Party for 40 years. I don't think that was in the prospectus when they first launched, right? That Jack Ma was a lifetime card member of the Chinese Communist Party. I believe he came up through the pioneers, the young pioneers. That's the automaton, the little Chinese boy they've got on TV over there, lighting me up every day, right? Which is it's scary. I don't care about them lighting me up. What I'm afraid of, and you hear this every week on Descent into Hell, is that they've taken these kids and brainwashed them. I mean, they have brainwashed them that America is the evil empire and America is out to destroy them. So, Chris, thank you. When is the book out, Feeding the Dragon?
It comes out July 28th, but pre-orders are super important because we decided a long time ago to print the book in the United States of America, which is abnormal. Most are printed in China. So there's a lot of publishers trying to cut the line to beat the supply chain problems. So the more pre-orders we have, the better. And I really appreciate you having me on. This is quite a news cycle.
No, this is, I got to tell you, Chris, you're a great American patriot and a savvy guy, so we look forward to having you on in the future. Chris Fenton, the book is Feeding the Dragon. Go to Amazon. Order it today, and when you order it, when you get on a pre-order, when you get it, you got to go back and do a review of it. That's what authors need. We're trying to get all this information out there. Chris, thank you very much for joining us today. Okay, Chris Fenton. That's a new voice you're going to start hearing. Yes, sir, Mr. Raheem Kassam.
It's so important what you talk about in terms of TikTok and these things. I mean, think about
It's Zoom.
Think about the TikTok thing is particularly important because it's on your phone. It knows where you are all the time, right? TikTok probably has...
And it's got every kid in the world on it.
Exactly. TikTok probably has more of an idea of the spread of protesters right now in Minnesota than the police do. Because you just geolocate and you can actually know... Because all of these people, every single person my age and younger, has TikTok on their phones. Every single person we've seen in the National Health Service, as all these doctors and nurses have been doing all these TikTok videos while this pandemic's been going on, has everything on their phones, and TikTok is in every single one of them. When you install TikTok on your phone, you're installing CCP spyware. Okay?
Oh, no doubt.
Well, it's interesting. They're now talking about moving TikTok to Los Angeles with a more Western kind of board of directors. So we'll see what happens.
That's all putting lipstick on a very ugly pig. This is like the guy, the front man for Zoom. They're always trying to get, so they can move it to LA all they want. They can move it to Kansas, right? It's still TikTok. It's still PLA. It's just like Huawei. These are all either Ministry of State Security, PLA, CCP. That, remember, once they get your information, they got it.
And one of our listeners sent us something again. This is why we love you guys, right? You always keep us on our toes. They're talking about Twitter, and they sent us an article from November 9th, 2019, from the Washington Post. The Justice Department charges 2 Twitter employees with spying for Saudi Arabia by digging into the accounts of Kingdom's critics. Now, what they were doing was they said that they accessed over 6,000 Twitter accounts of dissidents in opposition to the Saudi Arabian government. So here you have employees of one of these benign companies using all of the data in their servers to turn over individuals to an oppressive regime.
This is why we have the War Room. This is why War Room Pandemic. Remember, it's the old Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Nobody can do everything. Andrew Breitbart's whole concept was citizen journalism. You build this community, and the community's like one big mind. It's always looking for information. We can't go out and get all this stuff, but we've got every day on hashtag War Room Pandemic. I go through them all. And, I go through the criticisms of me a little quicker than I... No, just kidding. I love those. But the information, at least every day, there's a half a dozen to a dozen things that I see. I go, man, I would have never gotten to that if this person was not listening to the show. If you don't think your voice is being heard, this is why they're attacking us all the time in Beijing. It's not because of us. We've provided a platform for you. Remember, they're interested in what you think, they're interested in what you do, and they're interested in how you vote. Okay? You are the folks that changed the direction of American history in 2016. And now with the Bernie bros and the working class economic nationalists over there in the Bernie movement that we think are kindred to us. We have differences on a lot of things, but I think what bonds us together is much more powerful than what separates us. We want you, and we get some fabulous input from Democrats on the show, and really want to appreciate that. One thing we pride ourselves on, we bring on people who are fighters, okay? We kind of scale, tough as boot leather scale of the folks who bring on. At the top of that scale is our next guest, Liz Yore, because this is pure fight, okay? Liz, what most they know about you on human trafficking and your analysis of the Vatican, you write for many sites, you're up on Breitbart all the time, you're a fire breather. You know me through the Academy of the Judeo-Christian West, which, hey, we just won an Italian Supreme Court, just saying. And I'll have more of that next week when we get some time, given this news cycle. But Liz, a lot of people don't know that you're a former prosecutor, right? And you are you really are very tough in that regard. I think in your story, that's how you became interested in human trafficking of young girls and of kids, of children. But you actually gave me some ideas about, we say, and I want to get your opinion. Should the Attorney General go to Minneapolis? Would you think, if you were at the Justice Department right now, would you advocate for either a Tiger team, some senior representatives, or even the Attorney General himself to get out there and get on the ground and kind of sort this thing out?
I guess I would, Steve. But as I've mentioned and talked to you before, there are federal statutes on the books that say crossing state lines to incite a riot is a federal offense. that also has to be investigated. Many people have said that they see the same faces going from fires to protests. I watched the people from Minnesota. A lot of them didn't sound like Minnesotans to me. And, one of the jobs of the Justice Department is to enforce the law. That law is on the books. And we've seen it, I remember the days of Mayor Daley, saying very incendiary things like shoot to kill. But we cannot allow for the thugs, the mobs, to burn down a police station. The rule of law is gone then. If we can't rely on the police, it's a very thin line between the police and civilization. And if we don't have that, then we're going to devolve very quickly. So this law on the books is 18 USC 1201. Crossing state lines to incite a riot is a federal offense. And the feds have to be very aware with Black Lives Matter, with Antifa, and I've said to you, Steve.
Yeah, let's just hang on 1 second. We'll take a commercial break. We want you to stay over. We'll bring back Liz Yore. War Room Pandemic returns in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
We want to thank the War Room Posse, and this is why you listen to the show. You're sending us great information all the time. We got another great clip from someone internationally, one of our international audience. We know you guys are up all day and night, sometimes early in the morning listening to us. We want to thank you. We appreciate it, particularly Mandarin. Send us a great clip. Greg, do we have that ready? Let's listen to it.
It's not the racist white person who's in the Ku Klux Klan that we have to worry about. It's the white liberal Hillary Clinton supporter walking her dog in Central Park who would tell you right now, people like that, oh, I don't see race. Race is no big deal to me. I see us all as the same. I give to charities. But the minute she sees a black man who she does not respect or who she has a slight thought against, she weaponized race like she had been trained by the Aryan Nation. A Klans member could not have been better trained to pick up the police and pick up her phone and tell the police it's a black man, African-American man, come get him. So even the most liberal, well-intentioned white person has a virus in his or her brain that can be activated at an instant. And so what you're seeing now is a curtain falling away. And those of us who have been burdened by this every minute, every second of our entire lives are fragile right now. We are fragile right now. We are tired.
Okay, that is Van Jones, right, of CNN. That's Van Jones and his description. I guess this is the woman in the work for Templeton that got fired, that was in Central Park, unleashed her dog. And look, of the bird watcher, the black guy, 100% he should. These people with the unleashed dogs running around, it's particularly in New York City, everywhere. The guy, hey, 100% correct. She calls the cops on him.
Yeah,
right?
but hold on.
She calls the cops on him.
He starts throwing her dog treats to lure him away. That's not okay. I get that you don't want
the dogs.
No. I get that you don't want the dog on it. Anyway, the point is here.
Van Jones has said he had more access to Trump's White House in 1 month than he had in the entire 8 years of the Obama administration. I think he was bounced out of the Obama administration in the first month. He had more access. Did he give the guys that he was working with did he give them that speech? Did he give them that speech up front? I just want to know. Did he give them that speech up front?
Give who?
Did he get the team at the White House? Van Jones on the criminal reform thing was an integral part of the White House team. Did he give him that speech he just gave right there?
What is he actually saying there? Is my question. Is he saying that every white person in America has racism within them?
I don't know. You got to ask Van Jones. I thought it was very powerful in the fact he said Hillary Clinton supporter, and this just came up. I think it was just up on
just
CNN.
A few minutes ago. Yeah,
we want to thank our listener. We're going to have to deconstruct this, but it's quite powerful.
Very powerful.
Very powerful. So you're going to have to. We're going to have to wrestle with this, right? But my only point I wanted to play it is Van Jones, and he had said his quote was, and then he went back and attacked President Trump. Said he didn't, and Trump's head was blowing up. He'd done so much in his criminal justice reform that, and it rightfully said, "Hey, I didn't get any credit for it." And Van Jones said, "I got more access to the Trump White House in a month than I had in 8 years under Obama." So
this just sounds to me like a step on the way to, hey, actually, maybe these liberals who have been pretending to be allies this whole time aren't really the allies.
Well, he's definitely said that. There's no doubt about that.
Right, but I'm saying he's probably not going to land on the position that every white person is a racist. He's probably going to jump then to, hey, wait a minute. These people have been pandering and patronizing us on the political left. It ain't them. Those aren't our friends.
Well, I think we're seeing that with what happened with Biden's comment last week. You know, Puff Diddy saying that, hey,
that was outrageous.
Our vote is not for sale.
That's out. I mean, no, the blowback on him, I don't think the blowback was enough. I think what he said was outrageous to folks. Let's bring back in Liz Yore. Liz, we had to cut you off, but let me ask you just from your you were a U.S. attorney, right? Or you were a prosecutor with the city of Chicago? I forget which one you were. What were you?
I was an Illinois Attorney General, as well as a state's attorney prosecutor.
So
in Cook County.
Talk to us about Cook County. So talk to us about the real quickly, because we got a guest on from London or from Hong Kong and London. We got to get on the police. You called the thin blue line. As a prosecutor and somebody that would work with law enforcement, do you agree or disagree what they did last night with the precinct that they seemed to kind of abandon to the mob? What are your thoughts on that in regard to the thin blue line?
Sure. I mean, that's a road that I've never seen anybody go down before. And I think this is the effect of having Soros-imposed state's attorneys pouring money into liberal state's attorneys, liberal AGs. You've got Keith Ellison up as the AG in Minnesota. In my mind, the real discussion needs to be the shooting gallery in the major cities, like Chicago, like Detroit. What did we have? 50-some shootings over the holiday weekend, over 10 deaths. And that, to me, is the discussion that the liberal left will never undertake. And we are now seeing, and I'm afraid we're going to continue to see, the Soros insurance policy, which is undermining law enforcement and the rule of law by putting in liberal state's attorneys, liberal attorney generals, who will not enforce the rule of law. And if our major cities are blowing up, like many of them are, as well as, having homeless on the street, the only reason we don't have a huge homeless population in Chicago is because it's too cold to live in the streets. But this is the infrastructure that is falling apart. And the next step after the infrastructure falls apart is the rule of law also starts to crumble. So the Justice Department has got to step in and be very strong, first of all, with police brutality, but also with respect to keeping the streets and the community safe. If that isn't done, we're going to see a similar situation that we saw in, I think it was 1968, where the cities were on fire, like we saw last night. We cannot condone or excuse the robbing and looting of an entire Target. We cannot condone the burning down of precinct captain houses. That happens, Katie bar the door. We've got to, the Attorney General Barr has got to move in and restore sanity and the rule of law. And that goes for every Attorney General, State Attorney General, and state's attorney, and the people have to demand that.
Okay, but we've got to jump. But I just want to ask you. I'm going to bring you back next week for the Vatican and China. It's too important to try to rush here because your work you've done is amazing and the articles you've written amazing. But I want to come back to this because you're a professional. Are you saying and you agree that we should federalize this immediately? You do agree that Barr and a team should go out there, or some team at a senior level, that it's beyond the state's attorney generals right now, at least in Minnesota and maybe in Kentucky with this Louisville situation? Are you saying federalize this right now?
No, I'm saying if there are violations of federal law, civil rights law, those need to be looked at. If the present Attorney General, the state of Minnesota, is not able to restore order, then the federal government has to take a close look at that. But we have got to put the lid on what's going on in Minnesota. I fear that this is planned, that this is going to spread. I think it's no coincidence that this is happening in the beginning of summer, with everybody coming back, opening up, the country opening up. So we have to be smart about this, and the people have to demand that their local police departments, their city police departments, and state attorney generals enforce the law, whether it's errant police officers or whether it's rioters. This has to be nailed down immediately before things really go out of control, which I think, frankly, is what the left wants. They want a summer of chaos.
Liz, do you have a Twitter handle, and how do people get access to your writings?
I do. Twitter, Elizabeth Yore, and my website is Yore Children, YORE.
Liz, thank you. We're going to have you back on next week, talk about the amazing stuff you're doing about the Vatican, the Chinese Communist Party. I want to thank you. Liz Yore. Any updates? Because I'm about to bring in a very special individual. Jack, hashtag War Room Pandemic. We're going to have your stuff up over the weekend. Just a couple of programming notes. We got two specials. We had the special tomorrow, Descent into Hell Part 7, The Crisis in Hong Kong. And then on Sunday afternoon, WABC, we're doing the geopolitics of the 2020 election, I think from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. At night, 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock on WABC and all of our distribution platforms. We'll be doing the geopolitics of the 2020 election. Dave Ramaswamy, Jack Posobiec, Raheem Kassam, Stephen K. Bannon will be walking through the geopolitics that are going to drive the 2020 elections. So two specials this weekend, one tomorrow, 10 to noon. One of those individuals, we're going to tease this a little bit of what's going on. We're Jack Leung, and Jack is his nom de jour. So it's not his real name because he is one of the protesters turned insurgents. And Jack, we got a couple of minutes now, and we're going to bring you back for the next segment. Can you describe to the audience the crackdown that the Chinese Communist Party had on you? Really, high school and college students that were there doing peaceful protest against the regime as they were trying to crack down on you. Can you walk through what it was like?
Yeah, sure. So basically, last year, the extradition bill was, of course, proposing extraditing criminals from Hong Kong to mainland China, which many people were very concerned about. The police's response to these massive protests was really just totally grotesque and put us down mercilessly. And now, as the pandemic is sort of ending in Hong Kong, we have very few cases. Now the protests are resuming, and the new national security law has been completely. They've used the pandemic as like a weapon against us in Hong Kong, because at the moment people are so scared of catching, the virus that they don't want to protest. And the strategy, basically, as we saw from last weekend, is just arrest first, ask questions later, and if you're young especially, you are just, immediately suspect, stop and search. And we saw, actually, pro-Beijing media released these photos showing kids in school uniform being arrested and put on the back into a police van. One of the boys, he was slapped on the back of the head, assaulted. This is like a 12-year-old child. It's just absolutely disgusting.
Jack, we're going to ask you to stay over for the next segment. This is War Room Pandemic. Once you go to hashtag War Room Pandemic, we want all your voices, all your information, all your observation. You're part of this international community that listens to the show. We're going to bring Jack Leung in again in the next segment to hear more of what it is like. I will tell you, as we started doing these broadcast miles going ourselves a year ago on June 4th, I think there were 3 or 4 million people. No one thought Hong Kong would. This was the umbrella revolution. It was totally peaceful. But the CCP was totally stunned on that first weekend when this man stood up. What they did is these young people came out on the streets, and it wasn't like in Minneapolis and these other cities. They hit these kids with water cannons. They fired rubber bullets immediately. They tear gassed them. They got them off to the side and beat them like dogs. I mean, this was incredible what they did. And these kids would not back down. One of the biggest victories we've seen in this entire global war is the victory of these young protesters. We said at the time, I said last year, these are like the Patriots in 1775. They're Sam Adams, Paul Revere's, Patrick Henry's, Thomas Jefferson's. They took to the streets and they were not going to back down. And guess who blinked? The Chinese Communist Party blinked. They blinked. That's why they're coming in now with this new national security bill, which really is going to be a tantamount to martial law. They are going to shut down, but they've stripped their mask off from the world because they show that no agreement they will ever sign is any good. Who forced that? It wasn't the West. Who forced it were the young protesters in Hong Kong, 16, 17, 18 years old. We're going to return with Jack Leung from Hong Kong, and we return to War and Pandemic in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
It doesn't take 2 hours of listening to War Room Pandemic every day or our podcast later in the evening to know that we live in not just uncertain times, but very uncertain times. In those uncertain times, fortune favors the bold. And what you need as an entrepreneur, you need tools. And the best tool you can get is NetSuite by Oracle. It's the #1 platform of cloud computing in the business, in the entire software business. It's got a new guide for you entrepreneurs, 7 actions you should be taking during this pandemic crisis. You can get to it by going to netsuite.com/Bannon. It's up on our website right now. Just go there, click. Even if you don't think you need this software right now, these are great business tips to how to think about your business. Remember, if your revenue's $1 million to $100 million, this is the software that is your partner in how to build your business, whether it's financial modeling, capital asset pricing, whether it's inventory, human resources, e-commerce, the entire suite. That's why it's called NetSuite by Oracle. We're very proud to have them as our sponsor. I want to get to the breaking news. We've got Jack Leung in Hong Kong. We'll get back to him in a second. You've got some breaking news here. A scoop you had yesterday that I know in these international communities I'm in, they were passing the story around and said, wow, this thing's got to be checked and double-checked because it's so explosive. What do you have, Mr. Raheem Kassam?
The lead story on the nationalpulse.com, exclusive. Biden, China speech, urged CCP expansion into all levels of U.S. government, classrooms, labs, and boardrooms. This is something that Natalie Winters and the National Pulse team uncovered over the last week. This 2011 Sichuan University speech by then Vice President Joe Biden, who said, quote, in order to cement the robust partnership, he's talking about the U.S.-China partnership, we have to go beyond close ties with Beijing and Washington, which we're working on every day. Go beyond it to include all levels of government. Go beyond it to include schools, classrooms, laboratories, athletic fields, and boardrooms. I think we can actually play his own words, and let's hear it from the man himself.
To cement this robust partnership, we have to go beyond close ties between Washington and Beijing, which we're working on every day. Go beyond it to include all levels of government. Go beyond it to include classrooms and laboratories, athletic fields, and boardrooms. Now, in order to cement this...
Here's the thing. The whole of government approach of Donald J. Trump is to confront that. This is what we've had to weed out of the system, whether it's intelligence assets in the colleges now, whether it's $3 trillion a year capital from pension funds that are funding these companies, every aspect of the Confucian Institutes, where they're in social media, TikTok, your little kids, your teenage kids are on it. The entire thing. It's Biden. Remember, Barack Obama deputized Joe Biden to head the pivot to Asia. That clip you just heard, found by the great team at the National Pulse, Raheem Kassam, editor-in-chief, you're going to hear that in ads all fall. Joe Biden, I don't want to hear what Joe Biden thinks about Minneapolis right now. What I want him to tell us is what he thinks about Beijing and the Chinese Communist Party. We're now going to return to our hero, Jack Leung. Jack, here's what they think. As I say, you've caused the biggest victory. You've stripped the brave teenagers, 18 to 21 years old, 22 years old, that have stood up to the Chinese Communist Party in the streets of Hong Kong. You forced their hands and made them strip off the mask for the world that they've been sucking in guys like Biden nonstop. But they think you're going to crumble. I want you to tell this audience, are they going to break you? Are they going to break the protesters? Are they going to break this insurgency that's on the streets of Hong Kong? Because they think you're just going to crack and just run like a bunch of rats. Are the protesters going to crack, Jack?
Absolutely not. we have no leader. We are a totally decentralized structure and movement. So, for example, as a sort of what you say in English, like a frontline protester, the guys I run with and stuff, I know from school. Like, that's literally how deep the ties are and stuff. And if you ask me how many more frontline protesters do I know, I could count them on my two hands, like literally 6 or 7, just my very closest friends. And you can't. You cannot sort of squish this like a fly on the wall or anything like that. It's just a completely impossible thing to do, and we would rather die than give up, really. And we all have our own sort of respective roles on the front line in terms of what we do and how we fight. But if they think that they can crush our determination with the national security law, or by disqualifying our election candidates, or whatever they try and do, or just arrest their way out of the problem, it's not going to happen. We will never, ever, ever give in. It just will not happen.
Jack, they think they're going to, besides you said, hey, we'll give up our lives for this freedom, what they're going to intend to do with this new national security law, they're going to call you guys guilty of sedition. They're going to send you, sir, to a prison in China for 20 years. Are you prepared to do that for freedom?
If that's what it takes, I'm prepared to run the risk for it, certainly. And the one thing I would say, though, about the protests so far is they have arrested so many people. Like, I can't even remember the running total. I think it's just over 10,000 now. And when these cases have come to court, so many of them have just collapsed like a pack of cards because the prosecution service in Hong Kong is totally overwhelmed. They just cannot fight all these cases. So under-resourced, and, people who, under the law are totally guilty of the crime that they have been accused of, might be a rioting charge or whatever. They just can't prove it because obviously the burden of proof is quite high in, Western countries and in Hong Kong for these offenses. So they just can't, the thing I would say that, they will try and, use the courts in Hong Kong, which, just about, if you have like a non-politicized case, you'll still get a fair trial. The judges are kind of, independent still. But they will encounter serious problems with this legal system. So, I think this is the thing with the CCP. If they think this is going to be like a button they can press just to send us all to prison for 20 years, it won't be as simple as that. And they will have to completely crush Hong Kong's judicial system to try and do that, which they might try and do. But again, that's only going to provoke more of a response from us and hopefully from the Western world as well, hopefully.
Jack, we got to bounce. You're going to be in the show tomorrow. This is a tease for tomorrow. Tomorrow is The Crisis in Hong Kong. It's the 2-hour special from 10 a.m. to noon. Voices from people in Hong Kong that are fighting the Chinese Communist Party, looking for assistance from the West, but they're saying, hey, if we don't have it, we're going to fight them anyway. That's tomorrow, 10 a.m. to noon. Descent into Hell, Part 7. The Crisis in Hong Kong. Jack Leung and a host of his colleagues will join us. Also a special 7 p.m. on Sunday, the geopolitics of the 2020 election. I want to thank everybody. #WarRoomPandemic. Keep giving us information. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 10 a.m.